And welcome to a doubly special edition of Archive Thrifting. Special in that this would be our second Christmas thrifting episode, and it just so happens to be our 13th overall episode of this little series of mine. Whether it's unlucky or lucky is kinda open to debate, though. But regardless, I went and I hit up the annual Ringing in the Christmas Season weekend at our little 1 weekend a month, 7 months out of the year indoor flea market. And to fill things out, I've hit up some of my usual haunts as well. So with that, let's load up the old one-horse open sleigh with some junk, shall we? Here we are at Benson's Flea Market, which don't need no stinkin' signage. As such, we'll have to defer to the usual Budweiser sign and the building's beer color coordinated rust stain. Right out of the gate, we've got the apparently widowed Mrs. Claus for $69. Why does that seem inappropriate? A stray ice skate with a pom-pom glued to it, and a Rudolph yard sign with a C9 nose that isn't hooked to anything and as such doesn't light. Box of 8 tracks here, and somebody had a thing for K-Tel compilations. This is the most I've ever seen in one spot. Now, ever since I've been living here, I've been finding a lot more April wine albums. Must be because I'm closer to Canada. Otherwise, it's kind of 70s and early 80s AOR's greatest hits. I already have that Cheap Trick album on CD. Wouldn't mind an 8-track, but that thing's trashed. And a random Garth Brooks cassette. Well, it wouldn't be thrifting in South Dakota without some Elvis, would it? Joey D and the Starlighters. First time I've seen them in the wild. Fats Domino's would-be comeback album, which didn't really work out. Really, there's some decent looking LPs in here, but your brain is completely damaged when what catches your attention is Soupy Sales' low-charting novelty hit, Do the Mouse. Maybe my brain will fall out, finally. Anyway, this album is in pretty dang good shape. It just needs a little cleaning. Well, there's something you don't see every day. Van Halen's first album. For $25. Geez, you'd think Eddie Van Halen just died or something. Okay, this is somewhat more reasonable, depending on what it is. And it's some fairly common stuff, a lot of which I already have. Oh, hey, Blue Oyster Cult. Don't see them a whole lot, and I like this album, so if it's in good shape, never mind. Was somebody trying to scuff patterns into this disc? Well, somebody was too stoned to find the spindle. Anyway, another batch of decent if overpriced titles, a very premature Little River Band greatest hits, Donna Summer, the Jackson 5, James Bond themes, no idea what that is, Alabama, $2 for the Beach Boys would have been great if the disc were actually in there, Bob Dylan's first greatest hits, with the cover of Volume 2, with the European CBS logo, go figure, Stevie Wonder, Looking Back, hardy har har. Some familiar, some not so familiar stuff in the loose NES cartridges, such as Taboo, The Sixth Sense, which seems to be a numerology thing. Your personalized lucky numbers revealed. Seems kinda interesting, but not really sure it would make for much of an archivism, though. Anyway, aside from that, we've got a few Tengen games. I was never clear on that. Anyway, we've got Vindicators. We've got Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And could it be the rare Tengen Tetris? Sure is. And it's $75. I wouldn't even pay that for a boxed copy. Well, I guess this is appropriate coming soon after Alex Trebek's passing. Classic Concentration, which I remember watching a few times as a kid. Gyro Matt! And another Tengen Super Sprint, which I rented a few times way back when. But nothing is really getting my attention here, at least not at these prices. Well, I guess we're obligated to look at some Christmas stuff, so what have we got here? An elf trying to scalp Santa. Santa babysitting the baby Jesus. Were those cookies laced with laxatives, Santa? Either that or is this that weird kid that wants stock options, Santa? And behind him, we've got the just dropped acid and saw Jesus, Santa. Man, this is unsettling. Now, I would say, who collects Mr. Peanut ephemera? But given some of the junk I collect, I don't think I'm in a good place to criticize. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a Mr. Peanut beach ball, or a Mr. Peanut plushie for that matter. Well, that's the biggest nutter butter I ever saw. Anyway, it's not as high on the creep scale as my wooden drag queen Santa, but it's close. I think Santa's got a screw loose, don't we all? Anyway, I'm not really a book collector, but when you place a bunch of antique books in front of me, of course I'm going to be curious. Now, even though I'm not huge on the classics, I have a definite soft spot for the works of Edgar Allan Poe. I like how they're spreading out the best known stuff here over multiple books, but hey, this is the one with the raven. Obviously, this is not a first edition, but it's from 1903. Aside from that, we've got a reasonably early edition of Jack London's The Call of the Wild, which I haven't read since I was in school. Some slightly more contemporary reading here. What really caught my attention was the novelization of the 1979 film 1941. Yeah, some folks might not take too kindly to that abbreviation of Japanese. Anyway, I haven't seen this movie in years. Might be time to revisit that one. Part of me wants to send this along to the cinema snob. But anyway, on a more Archivian note, I found a ton of VHS tapes. We've got Dr. Phibes Rises Again with Vincent Price. We've got the Rudolph, Frosty and Friends sing-along, as purchased at the post office, and a lot of stuff that I just don't care about. An early-ish copy of the Muppet movie, which apparently came from an old Blockbuster video, and a copy that evidently was kept in the sun for many years. Otherwise, it's kind of the worst of the 90s, and multiple copies of these things. Well, this looks kind of cheap. Here Comes Santa Claus. Now, I'm going to guess this came from another defunct video store that had their own little homebrew cataloging system. Look at the top there. There were so many food stains on this thing, I wanted nothing to do with it. Now, this is unusual. Found a couple of tapes from the HBO lending library, both from 1997 and both looking deathly boring. Probably need returned as well. But just to put this in perspective, they had a lot of tapes, just none of which were of any interest. Oh God, flashbacks, relatives that were still using these in the late 90s, early 70s overload. Hey, wait, $36? I doubt it was that much new, even adjusted for inflation. My 7-year-old self would have wet himself at this collection of Garfield mugs. I had no idea these things existed. Little bit of late 70s through early 90s nostalgia here, for somebody else, not me, but they look nice though. Hey, a Merlin, still in box. No idea if $20 is a good price or not. Aside from that, if I'll just pan down, we've got a Batman projector gun. Why do I get the feeling these are all priced higher than they were when they were new? Okay, I have a soft spot for racetrack toys. I had the 90s equivalent of one of these as a kid, and like any good red-blooded American boy, I took great glee in trying to run the cars so fast they'd fly right off the track. Yeah, well, last year it was Santa Claus getting strangled, so this year it's a Victorian era caroler. And all her poor daughter can do is look on helplessly. And no, I did not stage this. And the haul from the flea market consists of 2 antique books, the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Volume 5, the Raven edition, a 1903 edition, and a 1931 issue of Jack London's The Call of the Wild. Then we've got a stack of records, the Allman Brothers' Eat a Peach, the only significant Allman Brothers album I didn't already have on vinyl. We've got Soupy Sales Says Do the Mouse, and other teen hits from 1965. Because it's the holidays, we've got a fairly early issue of Bing Crosby's Merry Christmas from no later than 1959. We've got 2 record rip-offs candidates, Summer 77 from our old frenemies at QMO, or Quit Mutating Oldies. And we've got a very generic-looking album from Modern Sound Records, probably from 1965. And on we go to Savers. Will there be anything as demented as the wooden drag queen Santa this year? Spoiler alert, no. Yes, I'm bummed too. Nice little VHS stash here. Wake me when a beta copy of A Christmas Story turns up. Ooh, Jack Frost. But not the Jack Frost I was looking for. The hunt continues. Nothing to feed my inner snob with here. Let's see. A John Denver 8-track, which I have on CD. I've already got my mom's old hand-me-down cassette of this Bing Crosby album. It is the single worst mono reprocessed for stereo I've ever heard. Otherwise, there's this Warner Brothers compilation, which I already have, but it has a nasty glitch on it. Guess I'll pick this up and see if it's any better. Otherwise, these look a little too generic for me. As far as the Christmas CDs go, it's mostly crap. This A Cool and Swingin' Christmas looked interesting at first, then found it was just the same standards from the same artists and knowing that label in dreadful quality. And that seemed to set the tone for a lot of the selection. A lot of cheap compilations and budget reissues. Yeah, this is the kind of selection I dread. Barbra Streisand, ick. Anything from Simon Cowell's roster can get roasted on an open fire as far as I'm concerned. And more cheap compilations. More cheap compilations. An historical new release. Anyway, this fooled me at first. I thought this was just another reissue of Elvis's Christmas stuff, but it's actually the Jordanaires, Elvis's periodic backup singers, re-recording Elvis's old Christmas stuff, with, as I later learned, Jimmy Orion Ellis taking Elvis's spot. And every permutation of the real Elvis's Christmas stuff except the original albums, both of which I have anyway. Anyway, in the electronics, I found what appears to be a knockoff Kindle or Nook e-reader by way of the Sharper Image. I just use my iPad when I need an e-reader. Now, this briefly got my hopes up. I was hoping I'd found one of those little monitors some folks use to quickly test out their AV stuff, but it turns out it's an incomplete DVD player you install in your car to hopefully shut your little brats up. Never seen one of these in the wild before. I've already got a fully functional 3D capable Blu-ray machine, but no compatible TV to use that feature with. It's just as well, 3D gives me a headache. Anyway, I think this perfectly sums up 2020. A plastered snowman made out of plaster. Don't open that box. The sheer tonnage of formaldehyde they used to embalm Santa Claus will kill you. A lot of gallows humor today. And the haul from this store consists of a new old stock S-video cable, because I have a way of destroying them, and prior to this had no spares. Warner Brothers presents A Christmas Tradition, which will hopefully not have the horrible glitch that my old copy has. And lastly, an original CD of Journey's Escape, because my existing copy is compressed to death. Majestic. Anyway, on to the first of two Goodwills. I haven't had good luck at this one lately, though. Living in South Dakota, I half expect to find actual reindeer antlers at the thrift store someday. Today is not that day. No, these are those dorky things that dorky people put on the windows of their car. In the CDs, a bit of a flashback. Music from the television show The Heights, bringing me right back to 1992. There was some weird cosmic thing going on with this. The day after I shot this footage, I heard How Do You Talk to an Angel on the radio for the first time in over 20 years. Aside from that, a possible local flavor candidate here, Blue, not by Joni Mitchell. Oh, lovely. These old Memorex computer labels. Make sure you've got a tray-loading CD player if you're going to play one of these. And this is one of those really old school CDRs, which I prefer. The die that the newer ones use is harder for some CD players to read. But anyway, it looks like this was recorded all over the upper Midwest. Some of it was recorded in Sioux Falls, though, so it qualifies. Anyway, I found a stray sealed blank Polaroid brand VHS tape, which is from 1993 or sometime soon thereafter, and weird as it sounds, I don't collect for VHS artwork, and I've got a whole U-Haul box full of blanks, so I don't need it. Also stray amongst the clothing is this decent-sized toy slot machine, which they wanted $5 for. I only do analog toy slot machines, thank you very much. Okay, what pose is this supposed to be? And what kind of funky outfit is this? Go to your bedroom and change, young lady. Let's see, a scalped elf. Nothing to see here. Speaking of nothing to see here, the best this section could muster was a VHS copy of Home Alone 3. Sorry, only the first two count. Otherwise, this is just depressing. A half-used bag of bows and an incomplete set of wise men, some damaged ornaments, Santa committing malpractice, some non-Christmas stuff, and for the coup de grace, a lonely, discarded, partially undressed, probably despondent, and possibly drunk female reindeer. Why am I not surprised? Oh yeah, and the Halloween and Thanksgiving stuff they couldn't get rid of. Only got one item from this store, Blue by Jeff Thompson, which appears to be a compilation, and judging by the song titles, I'm gonna guess this is country music. I tell you, why do I even try to get a decent shot of the signage here? Alright, we'll have to settle for this angle again. And, hey you, with the mask, get out of my shot. I don't walk into your shots, do I? Is this that Krampus thing I've been hearing about for the last few years? I guess this is a tree topper, presumably to scare your obnoxious kids into behaving? Okay. Gah! Now that's scary. Found a stray audio cassette amongst the Christmas decor. Merry Christmas, Baby, a Swingin' Holiday by Indigo 3. I found this one on YouTube, and it's thoroughly mediocre, inoffensive, competently played cocktail jazz. Good thing I passed. I found the shocking revelation known as A Christmas Without Snow, or as I like to call it, what at least 3/4 of the world experiences every year on Christmas Day. In the VHS bin, Hey, I'm alive! Well, thanks for sharing. This appears to be a TV movie from 1975. And I have a pretty good stomach for schlock, but I find most 70s TV movies unwatchable. Now, for a second there, I thought somebody raided my VHS stash and gave away my old Monkees tapes. No, it just turned out to be another copy of one of the Monkees tapes I bought in middle school. But the real reminder of my location is bunk management, which appears to be about managing your cattle's feedlot. That sounds just mundane enough for archive. Nutcracker, the motion picture, production designed by Maurice Sendak, the kids' book author. And it appears to just be another ballet. No thanks. Now, I always got to check out these public domain cartoon compilations just to see how malformed the artwork is, and I'm not disappointed. Popeye looks like he was left out in the car too long. Otherwise, I found H2O Works, water fitness training video, and do I really want to watch a bunch of senior women doing water aerobics? No, of course not. Well, here's something you don't see every day, an early Victor Grand Prize record. To the best of my research, this is a 1905 pressing of a 1904 recording, and I'll post a link in the video description where you can go listen to this one. Now, having said that, I can't tell where the dirt ends and the damage begins there. Another early record here from Silvertone, which was a mail-order label run by Sears Roebuck. And then we're getting up into World War I territory here. Henry Burr on one side and Billy Murray on the other. And I guess this is a follow-up to It's a Long Way to Tipperary. Now, this caught my attention. This is the first time I've ever seen the Walter Wendy Carlos name on a 45. So this is a promotional disc, and it's just a lot of stuff I've already got. Among the LPs, it's mostly the usual junk. But this popped out at me, awakening my silent film geekdom. It appears to be a compilation of songs that were used as theme music to various silent films. Of course, not the original recordings. But I've heard plenty of Gaylord Carter's silent film scores, so it could be interesting. Records were 3 for $1, so I picked out the Silvertone disc, apparently one of the original ones from 1916, the only year they used that label design. I picked up the 1904-05 Victor disc, and keeping with the ultra oldie motif, I picked up the Gaylord Carter album. Aside from that, VHS was 3 for $1, so I picked up Home Haircutting with Wall, which looks terrifying, and I gotta block out that name and address just in case. It's Red Skelton and Ernie Kovacs, Legends of American Comedy, not an archive candidate. And lastly, Bunk Management. And the final haul for this episode consists of 8 records. We've got our 2 early 20th century 78s. We've got 6 LPs, The Golden Age of Silent Movies, as performed by Gaylord Carter at his mighty Wurlitzer. That sounded dirty. We've got the Allman Brothers, Eat a Peach. Soupy Sales says Do the Mouse, and other teen hits. An early-ish 12-inch copy of Bing Crosby's Merry Christmas, 2 record rip-offs candidates, Summer 77, and an ultra-generic-looking album from Modern Sound Records. Then we've got 2 CDs, an early unremastered copy of Journey's Escape, and for the local flavor candidates, Blue from Jeff Thompson. We've got 1 audio cassette, Warner Brothers Presents A Christmas Tradition from 1987. A fair amount of these recordings have yet to find their way to CD. We've got a new old stock S-video cable, because I needed a spare. We've got 3 VHS tapes, Bunk Management, Red Skelton and Ernie Kovacs' Legends of American Comedy, mostly for the Ernie Kovacs stuff, and Home Haircutting with Wall. And lastly, we've got 2 antique books, Jack London's The Call of the Wild, and the works of Edgar Allan Poe Volume 5, the Raven Edition. And the cost of this haul came out to about $23. And that's it for today. This year's Christmas episode will be next week.